I really want to see us as a society learning to be okay with who we are and what our limits are. Hello, hello, and welcome to Oops Palsy Podcast, the podcast where we discuss the realities of living with cerebral palsy. If you're new here, which you probably are because most of you are, the channel's not that old, this is where we discuss our lives with cerebral palsy and we try to give a voice to those with cerebral palsy that are living with it. We try to do interviews and things like that that kind of allow a space for us to talk about what living with cerebral palsy is actually like. So today's topic is going to be common misconceptions because that's something that we tend to run into a lot with having cerebral palsy and with dealing with the kind of expectations of society, I guess. So good. That's Ty. If you haven't met him yet, again, if you're new here, that's my co-host Ty. And so, well, let's go ahead and get started. So I think this is something that Ty and I were already kind of discussing. It's just the kind of common stuff that happens with cerebral palsy that people may not realize is cerebral palsy related. And one of those things, one of the major things is fatigue. So people with cerebral palsy, if you don't know, people with cerebral palsy tend to use 2 to 5 times more energy than our able-bodied peers while we are completing the same exact task. Our bodies, because of the spasticity, we use more energy. So we're often tired. We often have like more aches and pains. We don't necessarily age faster. Our bodies feel the wear and tear more. So that's something that everybody with cerebral palsy is going to deal with at some level. Of course, cerebral palsy is different for everyone, so the level of that is going to vary. So with that, Ty, what are some issues that you've had in regarding fatigue, and how has that aspect of cerebral palsy affected you personally?
Well, it starts off like when you're young, right? You notice what you can't do with other kids and other stuff. And then when you're young, it also has effect with your mood. So like you're tired, you seem like a more cranky kid just because your family went for a small walk. And it's not a small walk when you have cerebral palsy, it's the whole day. And then there's interactions with other people who literally go, well, you're just not trying hard enough because I can do this. And especially when you're abled passing, they really apply that moniker to you, that you're just not trying hard enough when internally, like, you're exhausted and you're crabby because of it. And it gets worse when you get older, especially when other people join the job market and they go, I have to work this hard. Why aren't you doing this? It's like, I wish I could work that hard, but thank you for reminding me
Yeah,
I can't work that hard.
yeah. And I think yeah, I definitely feel you on that walk thing. A couple months back, my partner and I went for a walk and we went down and up a hill. The steepness of it wasn't like anything major, but then the next day I was walking like hunched over and my hip was like screwed up. For those that are unaware, cerebral palsy for many people tends to cause hip issues because of our gait and because of how we walk and because of the way our muscles move and because of that strain and uh, that extra energy that our body's using for our hips definitely causes wear and tear on that more often. I honestly won't be surprised if I need a hip replacement in another 10 years. So by the time I'm like 44, I won't be surprised if I need a hip replacement. And for me, the fatigue, like especially with working, I had to pivot careers that I wanted to do. Like I was in culinary arts at first, and then that became too much for me. And then I went into retail, and then that became too much for me. Eventually, I landed myself in customer service and banking and finance. And then after I developed cervical spinal stenosis and scoliosis on top of the cerebral palsy, I'm not able to sit for long periods. I constantly have to readjust. So unfortunately, I'm to the point where I'm not able to really do that. I can't sit for long periods. But even right now, we've been recording for what, like less than 5 minutes. We had a meeting before this that was probably about like 10, 20 minutes, and my back is already hurting. And I have one of those good, like, you see the like freaking mesh chair that's meant to be good for your back. So yeah, yeah, and How did you Ty, did you find that you had to when you went back when you were able to work and maneuver stuff like that, did you find that you also had to pivot careers and stuff like that? Or was it kind of like you just realized that it was too much for you and you kinda backed off what you were wanting to do?
So I started off wanting to work at a zoo. You know, my childhood dream, working at a zoo. I get there and the school counselor basically goes, "You can't do the physical lift 200 requirements to be a vet technician," which was the cheapest way to become a working at a zoo for me. You know, a biology major or a veterinarian was way beyond my ability to earn, let alone handle the loans. And so then I tried to switch to other childcare, but I needed a certain amount of money, so I don't have to take out too many loans. And I tried to do several different jobs. I also had other things in my life taking away the energy, like turmoil relationships and taking care of other people, uh, and which took a lot of energy out of me. Worked at a petting zoo. I've worked at a daycare in the mall, in the gigantic mall that's by me that would take care of kids while their parents went shopping. I
Is
worked
that
at
that crazy, like, museum mall thing where it's got, like, the dragon head and stuff?
yeah, the daycare was basically a tiny town built into the wall.
Like,
You open a door and suddenly it's just like a mini version of a town, the road and little shops and a fire station and a police station.
so
And we run the kids through the different stations, and then we take them on, and we had like a fake. It was my height, but it was a vehicle you could drive: an ambulance, a fire truck, and a police car. And we take the kids through the different things and jobs, and we drive them around the cars and fire safety. I ran the little radio station in town, and sometimes I got talked to because I forgot wasn't a song appropriate for kids in the list I put on. Or I did cooking class. We made like chocolate chip cookies for the kids. And then art, which I got in trouble once because it literally said in the front, parents aren't allowed inside the art room. The kids are allowed to imagine by themselves. And Karen wouldn't complain about me. But that job was easiest because I could sit and other stuff like that. The beauty technician, I do nails on the girls, talk about their day like a beauty technician. Kids love that. But then I go home and like I'd have to have like half an hour just doing nothing
yes.
to save. And my back, my problem is my back. It's my lower back. Like everything is tense. And I think it looks like I'm getting slowly a pot, but I think my spine's starting to bend a little just because that's where the
Yeah.
tenseness is. Petting
I
zoo,
recently dealt with that. Yeah, like, I recently dealt with that, like, last night, my back was I ended up having and I don't have the back spasms super often, but I had a really bad back spasm last night where my entire back was really tight, and I didn't go to sleep until, like, 4 or 5 in the morning because I was in so much pain, and that was with me, taking muscle relaxers that the doctor had given me, which I try to only take those as needed, and I try to be very sparse with them because, muscle relaxers can screw you up, and if you overdo it, it can get dangerous. So I try to be very careful. And I'm the same way with Tylenol because I'm only like 95 pounds. One thing that I didn't realize until recently is how much that fatigue impacts my life. Like, I lived a long time trying to put myself in this box that my peers were in, where they're going to school, they're having full time jobs, they're raising kids, and they're keeping up with the house. How anyone does that is beyond me because I can't work full time and go to school. I can't work full time and keep my house actually clean enough to where it doesn't look like a bomb went off. I try my best to clean it as much as I can. I do get help from my partner and my friends and family sometimes. But
I
one thing I've
it,
realized since I got in the spot where I can't work is like how much just sitting in a chair and working. And mind you, that's not physical labor, guys. I'm not lifting stuff. I've literally spent the last 12, 13 years of my life in call centers and office jobs. So I'm not exerting myself. I'm not, pulling my shoulder out of socket trying to lift crap or anything crazy like that. But even just doing that, uh, since stopping recently, I realize how much that even just that was impacting my fatigue and how I was feeling.
I think it's a standard thing of disabled people, and not just cerebral palsy. This is we're talking about, but disabled people in general, where it's the feeling like, why can't I just be normal? Why
Yeah.
can't I do
And
what everyone else does? And
yeah.
then Uh, it's impacting, uh, yeah, yeah, my brain farted there. Jobs, did a yeah, so trying to go to school, right? For time, work, going to school, energy management. I fell asleep for almost every single one of my exams when I tried to go to NATE. Like, I just fell asleep, walked like, at my exams, I got talked to by my teachers all the time. The only thing that could get me to school was a disabled bus system that would pick you up 3 hours before because they had a whole route to go to. They would just pick you up and take you to school. So I didn't
Yeah,
for that. I'd have to take bus systems in winter. I live in Canada, so just imagine what winter's like.
that sounds like hell.
And so that affected my career and able to do stuff. Right now, my energy management, my biggest skill has been managing households, supporting my friends and roommates by basically cleaning the house and organizing and keeping them on schedule and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's my biggest skill because staying at home where I can wake up and take a nap and clean at my schedule and get other people out and then go out as I choose. I was
Yeah.
out that was big a part of my life was just helping other people.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've majorly noticed for me is not only how much I was affected with my energy, but how much it was making my overall health, my physical health worse because, I would have to I wouldn't go to bed till 3 in the morning and I would have to wake up at 6 in the morning, work 8 to 12 hours, and then still try to keep up with the house. And I didn't even realize how much that was affecting me working as much as I was. Cause my thought process is like, I'm just sitting down, right? I shouldn't be burnt out from just sitting in a chair, and having to readjust myself now and then. So coming to terms with the amount of difficulty I had with it was very weird, and I think I'm still at the stage where I'm, like, trying to accept that I'm not working right now. Like, I do have income. I'm on long-term disability through my prior employer, which I guess I'm still technically employed there, but so I'm on long-term disability through my employer. And so I have income. I have okay income. It's nothing crazy, but I didn't lose a lot. But I think I'm still at that phase where I'm having a hard time accepting that change, because I've worked since I was 15, and I'm now 34. So it was definitely something I had to. I'm still in that adjustment process because, like, the thing is, what happens is, like, you end up grieving what you're losing, and what you're losing is a little bit of your independence. What you're losing is being like everyone else in your life, having that job, having something that you're working toward, having something to be proud of. And I've gotten better with accepting that, but it's still kind of an area. I know I'm trailing off with that, so I'm sorry, guys. I'm definitely gonna trim up some of
So
that, but
I think that's part of just how our society runs a little, and not to get into politics here at all. Just how our society runs is like you work, you have value, and some of us who can't work the way everyone else expected to work, we start to internalize that we don't have value. But in reality, I've said this before, but one of my favorite topics to research by myself is social anthropology, and the oldest signs of civilization was a rehealed bone that was obviously someone got severely just injured and then rehealed. And then there was another gravesite close to the same timeline where someone was clearly had like a bone disorder, but they'd lived to like 30 something. So someone had taken care of them. Someone had moved them from camp to camp. Someone had fed them. Someone had helped them go to
yeah,
the bathroom. They were a valued member of their tribe. Now, me and Sharon, different times, exact same feeling. We felt like we didn't have value because we can't work like everyone else. And what I just said about I learned I could organize a house for roommates and other people like that. I learned basically that a member of the tribe, I tended the fire. I watched the children. I cooked the meals at camp. I wasn't expected to go hunting. I wasn't expected to go foraging. I wasn't expecting to
right.
lift things. But I took
But no,
jobs away from people so they could do the other work. I had value.
yeah, like you're still contributing in some sense. I think honestly, um, and I'm not gonna delve into politics here, but I do have a theory that the structure of our society is not something that humans were meant to do. We weren't meant to work 8 to 16 hours a day. We weren't, while raising a family, while going to college, while doing everything that we do. Like, we weren't meant to wear ourselves down that much. And for a lot of people, especially if you're dealing with a disability, it's harder to kind of come to terms that you are that fatigued because you're just like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And it's very difficult to. I think it's just a hard thing to come to terms with, and I think it's something that everybody that is disabled has to eventually come to terms with. But yeah, uh, and another common misconception that I see or that people in the community have tended to kind of express or concerns, and a lot of times you'll have concerns from parents. Which, by the way, I do want to make very clear, our channel is also for parents. I mean, I can't imagine being a parent and watching your child go through this disorder because the reality is I've had to explain to doctors what cerebral palsy is. To my own primary care providers, I've had to explain what cerebral palsy is. And they look at me like I have two heads and I have to break it down. And
Explained it
it's,
to a police officer who didn't understand why I couldn't get up after fighting with somebody and had a taser drawn on me. He didn't understand what cerebral palsy was, and I almost got tased because the police officer didn't understand what palsy was.
yeah, I understand that from the perspective of like a police officer because they're not, but it shouldn't be something that happens in the medical field. I understand other fields. I understand, your common person not being aware of it. And I understand you're like, but I feel like people in the medical field, that's the part that really kind of grinds my gears.
I think they take a preliminary course in different brain disorders.
Well, and another thing that I read was like I'll have to see if I can find the study again, but there was a study that had talked about people with disabilities tend to be, I don't want to say ignored by their medical care providers, but they tend to maybe not be taken as seriously because of the fact that we're disabled. A lot of the medical community feels like I can't help this person because they're dealing with this disability. So instead of helping with symptoms and stuff like that, they're like, oh, I can't make their life better. They're always going to deal with this. And I'll have to find that article again. If I do find it, I will link it in the description. But
Can't cure us for a
I,
lost cause.
I don't think they view it necessarily like as a lost cause type thing. I think what it is, I think a lot of people, when dealing with someone that's going to be permanently disabled, right? Like, so cerebral palsy, you're not going to get rid of that. Autism, you're not going to get rid of that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you're not going to be able to get rid of. And I think, and that kind of goes into like, cures. So if you want to talk cures, a lot of people are frustrated because, there's no cure for cerebral palsy. Parents don't want to watch their kid go through the struggles that cerebral palsy causes because, what parent would want to watch their kid struggle like that?
Do they think I like watching me struggle? There's
Yeah.
mirrors
Um,
exist.
yeah. Well, like, and I think like, I really want to, like, have people understand is just because there's no cure does not mean there is no treatment. Okay, treatment and cure are two very different terms. So, a lot of things are treated symptomatically, which means we treat the symptoms of whatever is ailing you. Like, think about it in terms of there is no cure for the common cold. We do not have a cure for the common cold, but you treat the common cold with like Mucinex or cough drops, stuff of
Scene.
that nature. Yeah, you treat like tea. I'm a big fan of like hot tea and honey, stuff like that. There's also like if you're dealing with like sore throat, like you can do like salt water rinses for like your throat and whatnot. But I think a lot of people get down about the fact that there is no cure, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh, well, there's no cure for this," and then that kind of exacerbates the fear of, will my kid be able to be independent? Will my kid be able to do XYZ? Are they going to be able to work a job? Will they be able to live on their own? And for some cases, no. And that sucks. It really, really sucks. But that is the reality. Some people have cerebral palsy so severe that they won't be able to gain that independence. And it sucks. And it's okay to grieve that as their parent, as their caregiver. And I think grieving what you expected your child to be able to do in life when you first became a parent, the goals that you wanted for them, the life that you wanted them to live, there is that grief there. And I know a lot of parents feel bad about that, so that's why I'm touching on it. It's perfectly natural to grieve. It's perfectly natural to be like, oh, my kid's never going to be able to do this, and that really sucks, and I'm sad about it. That's normal. But I think, people get really down about the fact that there's no cure. And if you sit and think about it for a few minutes, like there's not a cure for a lot of things. We don't have a cure for cancer, but we can still treat it with chemo and radiation. You
Cure for
know,
stupidity, but we still have to deal with that every day.
Yeah. But like, what are some common misconceptions that you've seen online, Ty, that you would like us to like kind of address? Because I'm sure that you've seen stuff as well.
Online or personal life, because they both mix intermittent.
Yeah, whichever.
Okay, me personally, one related is to almost financial. I get assured income. I'm also technically retired. I got hit by a car, which finally made me applicable for disability. But I've
Is that
seen
a
this.
0 out of 10? You don't recommend?
I
Like, you don't
no,
recommend getting hit by a car?
I got hit by 4 cars and three of them were parked. But like,
Hold up. Did you say 4
no,
cars?
it's a joke.
What the heck?
That's a joke. That's a joke. I got hit
Okay.
by
Oh
one
my God.
car. No, it's a joke about you're a dumbass. Okay, the person saying the joke is a dumbass. I got hit by 5 cars and 4 of them were parked, as in you ran into the car. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's just a
Okay.
joke. That's just a joke.
Because I'm saying if you got hit by like 4 or 5 cars,
In a
stay
row,
indoors.
it was
Stay indoors.
it was
Like
like
there's
pinball. I was just bouncing across. No, 1 car
nature's out to get you. That's like the who was it? There was a thing where somebody was struck by lightning like 4 times
went
in their
blind.
lifespan.
Got hit again. Could see again. Lost his hearing that time. Got hit again. Regained his hearing. Weird stuff.
Yeah, like it's
But
yeah.
misconceptions, and it's tied to cerebral palsy, is, well, I've seen this person do X before. Personally, my friends, well, I've seen you do this before. And it's like, yeah, I napped for like hours after.
My God, yes, yes,
Or I know this person and they abuse their disability because I seen them do this with their kids. Well, that's great. Did you
yeah,
ask them how their life runs and what they did after? Or you just go, how
yeah,
dare they get help? I'm struggling.
yeah. And I think there's a lot that could kind of go into that. It's hard from people with that outside perspective because they're not living with it, they're not dealing with it. They're especially when it comes to strangers, like people that aren't in your inner circle, people that aren't like your caregivers, your family, your friends. It is very easy for people to judge when they are confused about what you're dealing with and they don't understand enough of what actually is going on. So like a good example is I can go and take a shower, but I'm going to be recovering for like 20, 30 minutes. And then there are times where like I can take a shower and I don't have to do that at all. But there are times where it's like I'll take a shower and then, all right, I'm done for the day. The fatigue, like going back to the fatigue here, that fatigue, it's kind of like a hill. Like it's like you know, I don't even know how to really describe it. I'm sure you get what I'm trying to
But yeah,
kind of get at here.
so it's a hill. You have bouts of energy and bouts of no energy, right? So
Yeah.
I set one task per day for myself, a big task. If it's digging in my garden, like a physical bend down activity, that is the sole activity. If it's go on the computer and do X, Y, and Z, it's might be 2 or 3 activities. If it includes watching my niece and nephew at the same time, that is one activity, plus the children. And some days I will feel energetic to do the whole thing, and then once I'm halfway through that task, I go, "What did I do?" And then I have to take a nap. Um, I call it a roller coaster because you got to learn when
Yeah.
to rest yourself and when to
Well, and
apply
also,
yourself.
yeah, like I had a episode where like I was able to deep clean the kitchen. Bad idea because I paid for it the next day. I didn't get out of bed the next day. And I'm still kind of recovering from that. That's the crazy thing. A, a lot, like I was telling you before we started the podcast, I tell you about like my back spasm that I had that lasted all night that I didn't sleep and my back muscles are still really tight. There are times where like I'll just go stand in the shower, but even like I had the water up like really hot last night and it still wasn't loosening that muscle. Um,
Happens to my neck right here. Literally, my family will see me look like this for days because I can't turn my neck back. It physically hurts. And I have to keep pushing against it and stretching it and got days of just
yeah.
painfully doing that. Like it still hurts kind of here. And this is just a regular day to day. I didn't get a spasm.
Yeah. Yeah, like recently, one thing I've been dealing with is like I don't know what I did to my arm. So my right arm, I'm not sure what I did with it, but I messed it up somehow because now when I go to lift stuff, I'll feel like a pinch or like a small sharp pain. Like it's not too bad. It's almost like being like stung or something kind of. And then my arm will get weak and like whatever I'm trying to do will just stop. So it's I don't know if I pulled something or if I like
Might need a nerve pinch
made them.
because same thing happened to me where it's right here in this muscle. But that's also where
Yeah.
um I don't know if it was after I laid on it or after that person bit me right here. Again, the fight I almost got tased.
Well,
Every
that was
time I
so you're talking like
Yeah,
yeah.
every time I do this with my arm, a muscle pops or a bone or tendon slides against something,
Yeah.
and it only happens with this arm. And then this arm will if I have it by my side playing video games, like way too much close to my waist, for some reason, from the forearm down will just go numb. I don't know why, and I can't lift anything. And I'll have to like keep doing this. Like this is the arm I have to keep doing this every single day, so it works fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I've dealt with recently. I'm hoping that goes away. It kind of comes and goes, but it is very annoying when I'm trying to like lift something or move something, and then my arm is like, "No, we're not doing that." It's very frustrating.
I thought of another misconception. This is like again, looking through my life history, having a near death experience here. This basically. I'm just gonna say it. Girls asking if I can pass what I have down to my kids. No,
Yes.
it's not
Yes,
genetic.
I do want to touch on that, and I will go through and we'll find that study again. But there was a recent study that the theory is that cerebral palsy may be genetic, but my thing with that study is, and I'm not sure if it's reached the point of peer review, but my thing with that study is it was children with cerebral palsy, not like the parents having cerebral palsy, just children with cerebral palsy. And it was a very, very small, like when you're talking in terms of like trying to determine if something is genetic, it was like little under 2,000, little under 2,000, I believe, when I last looked at it. I may be wrong on that, but I know it was a very small study that was done. When you're when you're looking into stuff like that, it needs to be able to be peer reviewed and it needs to be able to have like a wider range of people involved in that. I can't take 2,000 people with a disability and be like, this is a definite yes.
Also, when it comes to scientific studies, there's nuances that you have to know science and research and stuff like that to
Yeah.
get. And one of those will be, okay, sure, these children might have had a higher rate of palsy, but is that because for some reason they have a genetic marker that makes them not process oxygen? Like
Yeah.
they're not passing down palsy, but because of a genetic marker for absorbing oxygen, they might have a higher chance of
Yeah.
palsy or other brain disorders of lacking oxygen at birth.
Yes. So and going back to just so people are aware, cerebral palsy is brain damage. It is you during prior to or during the birthing process, something happened where you were born early or you lost oxygen, something along those lines occurred, and that's what gave you the cerebral palsy. And I do want to specify it in terms of going back to that study there, something being genetic and hereditary and being like 100% you will get this. Yeah, there are disorders out there that are like that. Um, but correlation doesn't mean causation. So what that means is people with cerebral palsy may be more predispositioned to getting cerebral palsy, but that doesn't mean that it's genetic. So as of right now, as far as I'm concerned, it's a maybe. What it is more than likely would be my guess is um you can be, if you have family history of lupus, or if there's someone with schizophrenia in your family, or if there's somebody with other like genetic conditions, conditions that are actually genetic. those aren't they're not definite inheritance going back to the genetics of that. Like, so like a good example is my family has, and this isn't regarding my family, it's just an example, guys. So say my family has a higher rate of heart problems. It's not that the heart problems are genetic in and of themselves. It's that for whatever reason, genetically speaking, they have a higher predisposition, a higher likelihood of possibly developing the heart condition, so to speak. So until we get more information on that, I would be curious to get more information on that. I would love for there to be more information on it. If anyone's found any recent updates outside of that study, please let us know because I would love to go over that. But we do want to specify that as of right now, it's a maybe. And what I think is a personally think it's not necessarily a genetic thing versus having that genetic predisposition, right?
Which is why we're talking about it so much because it makes us nervous because like at least in most of my teenagehood when I became active with other members of my age, the whole preconception that your disability is genetic because a lot of the abled just assume a disability is genetic versus occurred, which is most likely what happens with palsy, and it makes us massively nervous because the stigma enough being disabled from it being abled versus it being genetic and then that associated with it and the stigma people have because they don't know about it. Another preconception. Oh my god, I had it in my head.
But while you're trying to think of yours, I do
Yeah.
have another one. And then this also kind of, I guess, goes into that last point that we were just making as far as genetic predisposition and the likelihood of developing cerebral palsy because of family history and what exactly that would mean. So, touching back on that, one of the major misconceptions that I have, and it is a massive pet peeve of mine, is intelligence. So, before I get started into this tangent, I want to make people aware that again, correlation is not causation. So if I have ADHD, that is a correlation, but it is not caused by my cerebral palsy. So what that's referred to when you have one or more conditions at the same time, or two or more conditions at the same time, I should say, is a comorbidity. Morbidity just means you have two or more conditions at the same time.
So like
And
they don't just
you are,
knock each other out of the ballpark.
yeah, yeah. But what a lot of what we deal with, and I think part of this is because so many of us have problems with speech. I don't know what it is about speech, but for whatever reason, society has this viewpoint that, you know, if you have speech problems, that you are, I'm trying to be like PC here, that you are mentally deficient, that you are not as capable, you're not on the same level of your peers. And that's not what it is. What's happening is the muscles in your esophagus and in your mouth and in your face are not working the way they would for a normal person. And that has nothing to do with your intelligence. And this goes into the people that are with more severe cases of cerebral palsy. Because I've talked to people that have kids with more severe cases. And when I say severe, I mean they have to have a G tube. They can't eat. They have to be fed through a tube in their stomach. Or they can't talk. They can't walk. All they can do is like maybe make grunt noises, if that. A lot of parents feel like because their kid is in that state that they don't know what's going on. And that to me is heartbreaking because I guarantee you to some degree they do. And I guarantee you it's probably way more of a degree than you would even realize just because they can't communicate.
So I've encountered this massively in many different forms. One, I can physically tell when someone walks up to me and then their vocal tone changes when I talk. You guys can hear me. I talk standardly pretty well, right? But if I'm literally in my wheelchair and someone comes talk to me, their vocal tones are different as if they're trying to participate if I actually understand them or not. And then the
They
shock
start talking.
relief and they sort of like relax a little, learning that like, oh, hi, how you doing? My name's Ty. Would you like to talk about dinosaurs?
They start to talk. They start talking slower to you so that you can understand them. Like the wheelchair somehow depletes your brain functionality.
Yeah, like they don't know what disability that I have walking up to me. And then and then I start talking. Two, I have friends who are super intelligent people, but they talk like some whistly alien because their vocal tones are so tight, vocals are so
Yeah.
tight that they can do clicks, widths, and noises, right? But and the specific person there's a program where I live where college kids will get cheaper rent by helping this person with a disability, right? Be their helper in the house. This helper was with him, 26 blonde girl, college girl. And we were talking with him and joking, and I was joking and translating because I've been around a cerebral palsy person enough. I can understand what he was meaning through body motions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're all uh, smoking outside and stuff like that. And she goes, "You guys are so accepting. Like, you guys, like, it's so understanding." Like, and these are all my friends who know me with disability,
Yeah.
and and then other people with palsy and speech impediments, like, I translate for them, and then they're thankful that I treat them normal
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
experience every single day the difference between people who are like, treat you like a child because you can't talk like an adult.
Yeah. And in a way, I kind of feel like it's an automatic thing. Like it's not something that people are conscious of. So I don't really want to bash people for that. But I do find it interesting that a lot of people think that if you have cerebral palsy, that you are mentally deficient in some aspect. And so, like, there are people with autism that also have ADHD. There are people with, like myself, I have ADHD. That isn't necessarily from the cerebral palsy. I could not have cerebral palsy and still have ADHD.
Her family has ADHD, so I've
Yeah.
got a 2 for 2. It's fun. I'm both tired in mentally and physical directions.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I hate it. I hate it so much. But I feel like people, and I'm not bashing anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. I just think it's like an inherent kind of thing, and maybe it's something to do with like our reptile brains. I'm not quite sure. But I think people feel because somebody can't communicate that they don't understand what's going on in the world around them. And to me, that's the most heartbreaking thing because if I wasn't able to talk, it doesn't mean that up here isn't working. It doesn't mean that I don't understand, like, the world that I'm living in, or I don't understand that my dad is my dad, or I don't understand that people that take care of me are taking care of me. Like, I think, especially when it comes to terms of, more severe cases, that's a stigma that we really need to work on as a community to help break.
The part
So,
to add to
yeah,
that,
yeah, no,
right? So, uh, one friend who was a care worker for a teenager with cerebral palsy, just becoming a teenager. And this talk about like the communication and the we're not stupid behind these eyes. She was bed bound. She had to dress her. She had to give her cereal in the morning and feed her. She said before, a couple months before she hit puberty, she was so much more easier to deal with, nice and stuff like that. Now she tosses her bowl up when she physically can and stuff like that
that would be
and other stuff like that. And I listened to her story and instantly knew what was happening. I was like, she is a teenager now. Her mental milestones is she's going to push her boundaries and she doesn't have, and you literally feed her, you literally change her, you do not give her options. She doesn't get to choose anything in her life and she's a teenager now. Her mental
yeah,
milestones are the same as any other child. You have to give her choices. You have to give her a little bit amounts of freedom that she can access, even though she's physical bound. She started giving her
yeah,
cereal choices and letting her set out clothes that she could pick. Night and day, she became better because person kept like assuming that what was behind the eyes wasn't normal milestones, mental milestones as any other child.
yeah. Well, and my fear with that, my fear with the viewpoint on that is, a lot of parents take the time to teach their kid. They'll get flashcards. They'll help them read. They'll teach them the stuff that they should know, and they'll help them with And my fear with that is if they think that their kid isn't all there, or they think that their kid doesn't understand stuff because of not being able to communicate properly, or having some issue that kind of causes that thought process in them or whatever. Like if they think that their kid's not all there, that they may not be doing the standard of care that you would see the average parent doing. So they may not be teaching their kid math with flashcards. They may not be teaching their kid like how to read and how to grow their vocabulary. And especially I could see that being an issue because, like, I definitely feel like there's got to be some parent
It's
out
a
there
bit
that is
more
like,
drastic than that. It's actually more drastic than that, right? Because a baby's mental milestones are important. Toddler, child, mental milestones. If you do not start teaching and reacting in a proper way, again, people like me might not be able to talk or move the same, but mentally, majority of us are okay behind the eyes. If a baby doesn't get the same interaction, you're not talking to it, you're not giving it options, you're not doing play, that affects brain development,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
And that also is going to affect their like attachment style. That affects so much, like from their attachment style, their mental health. I'm getting, go ahead,
you can
Ty,
make
I'm
a
sorry.
child feral by not talking to it enough at the time of its brain development of speech. Okay? So not treating us like, again, not expecting us to go cook on a stove if we're chair bound. Very least not talking to us and acting us like we are okay behind the brain will actually damage your child.
Yeah.
Like
And
long
that,
term.
yeah. And that's the fear that I have. Like, it's also heartbreaking to hear because, like, the parents are like, I take care of her, I do this, I do that, but she doesn't know who I am. And I'm like, no, she completely knows who you are. At the very minimum, even at a basic level, she knows that you're the person that takes care of her. She knows that you're the person that cares about her. Uh, and yeah, there are some people with cerebral palsy that aren't all there because the brain damage was bad enough that it does affect their mental processing to the point where they're not able to retain information, I guess. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. My fear is that parents may not try because they might feel like because their kid can't communicate, because their kid can't do this or that they aren't able to learn or able to do stuff just like everybody else would. And then to add on to that, like, you know, there are people like I was in banking, finance, insurance, and I did that pretty well up until I got to the point where I couldn't physically sit still for very long. There's a girl with cerebral palsy that I came across in one of the subreddits. If she's watching this, I'd love to get her on. I don't know if that's something she'd be up for. And I can't remember exactly who it was that made that post, but she has cerebral palsy and she's a lawyer. She's a lawyer. Do you know what it takes to get through law school? That's insane. I would not have the patience for that. But she's a lawyer. And there are people that are, I did have my STNA license for a little bit there. Obviously, I couldn't physically do the whole STNA stuff because STNA it's very, for those that don't know, STNA is state tested nurses aid, and you're pretty much the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the medical community. But at the same time, you're taking on all the grunt work. So, like turning, lifting, feeding, changing, like you're dealing with all of that.
So not an RN or an LPN.
Yeah, so it's not an RN. What is it? It's a state tested nurses aid. At least here where I'm at, it's a state tested nurses aid, and they basically help nurses with doing the typical standard of care stuff because
Yeah.
nurses are so.
Overworked.
Yeah, well, and it's here for you to get into. It's a stepping stone that if you want to become a nurse at some point, because nurses do this too. I want to be clear that will also do everything that an STNA is doing and probably a lot more that I'm not aware of. Most of my family, I have like 4 nurses or so in my family, and my best friend is also a nurse. So basically they kind of help with like all the grunt work and stuff like that. But it's basically like a milestone for if you want to get into the medical field, you could become an STNA, that'll get you in the door, and then you could get with a company that will pay for your schooling, stuff like that. So it's where a lot of people tend to start, which you don't have to start there, of course. You can just go through the nursing school and everything, but to each their own. But we're smart. We're intelligent. Our brain functionality is enough for us to succeed in certain areas. I know people with cerebral palsy that, lawyers, and I have another friend that we are going to be interviewing later this week. So we'll be up on the podcast this month. I don't know exactly when we're going to get it aired, but it will be up sometime this month. But Friday, we are interviewing um, a girl with cerebral palsy a woman with cerebral palsy, I should say,
Yeah.
sorry. We're interviewing a woman with cerebral palsy that is a model and actress. And she is in a wheelchair. She's not it's not able passing like mild cerebral palsy. It's like she's in a wheelchair. And I'm so glad that I'm going to get to have her on because a lot of people with cerebral palsy, it kills our confidence. It is such a confidence killer. Like,
The repeated rejections of dreams you thought you could do like everybody else.
oh
Um,
yeah.
and the intelligence
But
thing
when I,
is like me as a kid. It's like come up. It's like how like big ass leg braces on my legs and stuff like that. Adults go, "How you doing, little buddy?" And then I suddenly start, "Oh, you're talking to me?" And I split off a whole thing of the history of the Bronze Age.
no, you want to hit them up with some quantum mechanics.
I try to get into that, and I start to drift off, and people's eyes glaze over. I'm I'm
Yeah. So,
I'm watching stuff about basically interstellar physics and science. I listen to a podcast like that about black holes and stuff like that. I start going on about that, and people like think it's like a casual conversation for me. Will just start their eyes will start to glass over as I go on to like the distance
yeah,
between stars.
uh, like you're sitting there trying to explain the world to them and they're like disassociating because it's like too much for them to be fair, science and medical stuff, it is dry. So I don't really blame people. You have to kind of have a bit of an interest in it. Yeah. So, yeah, going back to like, we are and we can be at the same level of our peers. And if you have a child with more severe cerebral palsy, please don't discount them as not knowing what's going on. Just because they can't communicate, it doesn't mean they don't know. And I want people to strive for the best for their child. And guys, if you are someone that has had that mindset, please don't feel bad. Okay, this isn't. I'm not bashing anybody. I'm not telling people that they should feel guilty over this. In fact, I think it's somewhat of a normal mindset because doctors and the medical community tend to leave parents in the dark. And I don't blame parents for being like, oh, he doesn't look like he's looking at me when I talk to him. So how do I know that he's listening? How do I know that he can hear me? He's not able to communicate with his words. How do I know that he understands that I'm mom or that he understands that like I care? Does he understand like when we talk about topics and different subjects, does he understand that? And I think that's it's probably one of the most common misconceptions, honestly, and probably one of the most dangerous ones. And I don't want anybody to feel bad for having that misconception. Part of why we're doing this channel, this podcast, is to help educate people because, okay, so when I started the podcast, I mean, I've kind of given you guys the whole spiel about like me not being able to work and everything. When I got that point and I was like couch bound for a bit, I just went through group after group after group on several different forums of people with cerebral palsy. Like I'm in all these cerebral palsy groups. I'm seeing where all these parents are struggling, where people with cerebral palsy are struggling. And I noticed the same questions over and over and over. And it broke my heart. And then because I realized like, I'm not the only one that doesn't have support. There's so many people out there that don't have a support network for this.
Even
Like,
even me, even on our differences of me and Sharon. Sharon lives US, I live in Canada. In my opinion, I have greater supports than she does. Like I said, I'm on assured income and was retired. I have small medication and stuff like that because I got hit by a car. I couldn't work and stuff like that. I'm more stable than she is in my mind and stuff like that. And not getting in my opinion, massive reading. I'm into social anthropology. My opinions about a society is wow, it really worked better if we were just more geared to helping people exist, especially disabled people. That's why I'm on this podcast because the support I get, I realized, wow, I actually have value. I just needed a space where I could operate without being exhausted.
yes. And my thing is, and I love that you're in Canada because one of the major goals that we have is providing people with resources. So I can reach out to people in America and get resources for people that they can utilize because a lot of people they don't know where to turn. Okay, if no one's telling me what my kid can and can't do or what my kid can't and can't understand, if you have called a physical therapy place and you're like, I have cerebral palsy, can you guys help me out with exercise and to get back into PT? And their response is,
Their
that's why we're here.
or their
Which, by the
response
way,
is, you need a specialized physiotherapist. We don't do that here.
I literally got that's a real story. That's not an example there. When my back started doing really bad, I had to go to physical therapy. The first physical therapy place I went to would overwork me to where I would literally feel worse coming out of physical therapy than I did when I went in. I would feel worse. And the only time I did better at that PT place when it was when they had like I went on there was like one guy there that would literally just do like, "Hey, you want some heat for your shoulders and your back?" And he would like throw like a heating pad and do like a little massage. And that's the only time I felt okay there. That's the only time I felt better going out versus coming in. A lot of people with PT tend to I feel like a lot of physical therapists tend to overdo it. Like stretching should be a stretch. It shouldn't be painful. It shouldn't cause harm.
I've never known stretches to not be painful, so I don't know. But
Well, no. My stretches are still painful. There is still pain, but there's a difference between pain and a little bit of mild discomfort from the stretch versus it causing damage to you and making it to where like you can't move the next day
I've had
kind
to
of
tell
stuff.
my girlfriend and my sister-in-law, if I'm screaming, it means it's working.
Jeez. And that's a bit much for me. I don't want to be in that state. I don't want to make myself worse off. But yeah, I think for me that's like the biggest misconception is like our intelligence. I want to be very clear that cerebral palsy, while it is brain damage, it is not a developmental disorder. Now we may have additional stuff like ADHD or you can have autism as well. There's a number of things that you can have that
For in this world, you could have multiple disabilities.
yeah, you can have the comorbidity like I was saying earlier. But I don't know, it just is something that, like, really breaks my heart because, you see that, and then you also see parents that, like, will coddle their child with a disability.
My my mom tells a story, okay, where there's a kid with my exact level of cerebral palsy. Both were in almost exact same year. My mom, not now, is was a nurse, so she kept track of this stuff and the different disability associations where I lived. We're chill bound because they was like, "Oh, you don't have to do this. You don't do this." My mom and my conservative military dad were like, "We're gonna stretch you." My mom cried while stretching me the first time because it was painful, but we're gonna
Yeah,
push you to your what we think you can handle, and we're gonna keep shoving, like not shoving you, but encouraging you to do more. We're not gonna baby you the entire way. I'm here. I can do things, and this other person, as far as I'm aware, is still wheelchair bound.
yeah. Well, like, one thing I wanna touch on with that, because I think this was great advice that I saw. I forget exactly where I saw it. I know it was in one of the groups, whether it was on one of my Facebook groups that I follow or if it was on Reddit. But somebody had asked about, how to push their child without overdoing it. And their method is their child has to try it 3 times, and then if they can't get it, they have to ask for help. But they can't ask for help until they've tried it 3 times.
Asking for
Which I
help
think
is
is
very important. Lesson learned.
yes. And if you do that enough, depending on what it is, your child might grow to be able to do that on their own. So if you're like, "Hey, open this pill bottle," if you need to take meds or like whatever. But if your kid can't open it and they've tried 3 times and you're like, "Okay, I open it for you." But then the next time they say like say they need like a Tylenol the next time, have them do that again and have them kind of build up a little bit of that muscle strength if they can. If they if it's not something they'll never be able to do, that's okay, but at least have them try and at least have them learn, how to do it. Even if they can't, it's worth a try, you know? And yeah,
Just as an adult with cerebral palsy, and I've interacted with children with cerebral palsy at cerebral palsy Christmases, association Christmases, and fundraisers. I have legitimately seen personally the difference between my interaction with children and their parents' interaction with children, and how happy these kids get by someone with their disability who has no compunction to treat them like a disabled child. Right? This one
yeah,
kid, I was, I, I, I was running around pushing him in his wheelchair, making airplane fighter noises, and he had the biggest. I'm gonna say because I have cerebral palsy, a biggest cerebral palsy grin on his face. His arms like this. He's giggling in the way he giggles as I'm just driving him around the backyard. We were in the barbecue, making airplane noises, and his parents looked the happiest they've ever been because, like, I was just playing with him. I was
yeah,
in middle school playing with him, and just the difference of I wasn't going to assume that I had to treat them with kid gloves was life changing.
yeah. And like I said, I don't blame parents in either direction, honestly, because there's so much that's not known. And unless you are searching for these groups, unless you are specifically trying to find that support network. So you're not going to know what the best options are, and it's a very fine line between independence and coddling. It is a very fine line. And
Very blurred some
for
days.
yes, yes. And I feel for parents because, like I said, when you have a kid with cerebral palsy, you're dealing with neurologists, you're dealing with primary care providers, you're dealing with physical therapists, you're dealing with all these people that you are going to for answers, and the best they can give you is I don't know. And I can't imagine how terrible that would be as a parent to just get I don't know. Like, that's crazy.
Or especially Canada, US. You got to pay for it. You got to pay for all these things. Your child's disability is now an expense. Can you afford this? Can you afford to talk to psychologists about this to even get the help of saying, no, no, your kid's more or less normal mentally, talk to them and stuff like that. Or,
Yeah.
or programs or help work programs so they can get, interaction with other kids or other things like that. When there's a price contained to even just being disabled, there is a barrier to even get at like what we're doing here is free for you to
Yes.
watch, to learn. Getting this advice from a psychologist or like a doctor, especially in the US, has a price tag on it.
Yeah. And it sucks because, you know, you're seeing specialists that should know about this, but because I think scientifically, we're just at a point where we don't know enough about cerebral palsy as a scientific and medical community, and that leaves a lot of doctors also in the dark. So I think it's kind of like everybody's kept in the dark, and everybody's trying to help each other out as best. Like it literally is the blind leading the blind because we don't know enough about it. Like we know enough to say maybe this, maybe that, or try this, try that, but it's still not at the point where doctors can give you a definite, oh, they'll be able to do this, they'll be able to do that, oh, they're not going to be able to do this because of their disability. Because we're just not at that point scientifically yet where that's possible, mostly speaking.
Scientifically, hey, society, where's my exoskeleton? Please.
Oh my God, that'd be cool. That'd be dope.
Oh my God, every one of us getting palsy, getting an exoskeleton installed at puberty, and then just being like dock workers because we can lift 100 pounds and normal people can't. Oh my God, there would be such a society shift just saying for someone like science fiction.
Yeah. And another thing I want to talk about that I've seen a lot in the cerebral palsy community, and you might feel differently about this, guys. You might feel like my take is wrong, and that's okay. Everybody has different takes. The statement, now let me cook, because you're not like what I have to say. Let me cook. The statement that cerebral palsy, people that have cerebral palsy can do whatever they want no matter what. I'm sorry, but that's not realistic. When you phrase it as whatever they want, I'm not going to be running marathons. Mm, I'm not going to be in like the Olympics. I'm not going to be able to, I can't lift like 100 pounds. And I think that narrative is also dangerous because then that's going to push parents to think that their child's not trying hard enough. And then that's going to push people with cerebral palsy thinking that they're not doing enough. And then they internalize that and then they blame themselves and it makes them feel really awful. And it's terrible on mental health. And I think it's just dangerous because of the precedents that it sets. And I think we as a society as a whole and we in the disabled community, we need to be okay with not being okay. We need to be okay with not being able to do certain things. Because if you can't do it, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You shouldn't beat yourself up if you can't fit into this box or into that box.
I
You're not
wish
going
I
to be
had
able
an
to do it.
adult with cerebral palsy, like a mentor or someone like another man who basically could say that to me. It's like, don't break yourself against things that you find difficult or can't do. Do not despair 'cause you
Yes.
can't do it. You can find something else, but don't be
Yes.
bashing your head against a wall. You will hurt yourself and your progress through life.
Yeah. And like, I think as a whole, that statement is harmful. I understand where it's coming from, and I understand people wanting to be positive, but everything is not black and white. There are gray areas. I personally think that pushing the narrative that those of us with cerebral palsy can do anything no matter what, I personally feel that that is disrespectful to those that have more severe cerebral palsy and their families as well. I feel like that's disrespectful because that's not the truth for everybody with cerebral palsy. Like, you might feel that way about your situation because you accomplished the things that you wanted to accomplish, and that's great. I'm not telling you to not have that mentality or not be positive about things, but pushing that narrative when it's such a wide range and affects everybody differently, and telling people they can do anything they want despite their cerebral palsy, like, that's true in some cases, but you're not going to be able to do anything you want. You can't do it. Just, I hope people understand where I'm coming from with this,
It also
because this is
pops up
something.
in another way when a stranger will go, "I know this person with cerebral palsy. They do this, or they have opinion." One friend told me, "Well, I know this person. I get assured income. I know this person with palsy," and they're like, "I don't need no assured income," and they put out like money to pay a bill. Now that story to her was supposed to be encouraging for me, and it killed my soul a little because it's like,
Dude,
well, I have to accept disability. So does that mean I'm lesser than that other person with cerebral palsy?
yeah, no, I die a little inside every time I hear that statement, because so many disabilities have such a wide spectrum. And I think society has this narrative that because, oh, well, this person could do this, why can't you? And that's not how most disabilities work, because most disabilities are on a spectrum.
I have
I
heard
might be
it so many
yeah,
times, I can't count it on these
yeah,
hands.
yeah. And like, I'm not saying not to be positive, right? Like, this channel is all about trying to be positive and accepting and giving resources and giving help and providing a space for our community. But you have to be realistic, and I really would love to see communities, whether it be the cerebral palsy communities or other autism communities or other communities, what have you. I really want to see us as a society learning to be okay with who we are and what our limits are, because it's so mentally damaging that we're not okay with that. Like, it is so mentally damaging that you're not okay with your limitations and who you are and what you can and can't do. It's so harmful. And I don't know. Like,
The way our society is wrought up right now, and the way the problems we keep bringing up is related, is that we are not chaff in the system for the system to spit out because we can't produce a certain amount of value. We have value just by existing, just by being loved by our mothers and our fathers and our family members, by being there. My biggest value is literally just being there to listen because I'm not going to run away from a conversation. Is such a big value to the people that live around me that my people who live around me cannot, blow my own horn here, but can't think of living without me. Me not existing would leave a vacant hole in their life so greatly that it would be bad. You still what I'm saying?
yeah, and I think that's true for everybody. Everybody's gonna feel that way about their loved one, like, where if anything happened, it would leave a hole there for sure. But and I do agree with you. Like, you handle stuff really well, because I mean, how many times have I vented to you over the past like 5 years that we've been friends? Like, I can't even count that. Like, yeah, no,
I vent my anger and nihilism, and then I go, but things still have a bright sunshine tomorrow. I switch between them.
yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I think part of the toxic positivity that really bothers me is you're guilting parents. Like, not only are you making people that live with cerebral palsy feel bad about who they are and what they can and can't do, but you are guilting parents. I can't tell you how many times I've seen posts about parents blaming themselves, about, I did this to my child, I gave this to my child. No, you didn't. You didn't. Life happens.
My mom picked me up and was crying beside me, like picked me up because I was visiting her, right? From the bus. I can't drive. And she's crying. And I'm like, Mom, what's up? She's like, do you blame me for having cerebral palsy?
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
I'm like, what? That doesn't even cross my mind, Mom. It was a random accident. Like, I can I
Yeah,
I can do things because you pushed me, because you're a nurse. You knew what my mom knew what cerebral palsy was and how it interacted. She was a nurse. And just
yeah,
even
and
her was like, she was felt guilty.
yeah, and the reality of it is bad things happen to good people all the time for no reason. And that's life. And it breaks my heart watching parents blame themselves because, one, you didn't cause it. Life just happens, and that's not your fault. Two, by blaming yourself, you're you're only making yourself feel worse about a situation that can't change. You're not going to be able to change that your kid has cerebral palsy. You can help them, you can encourage them, you can do things to help make their life better, but you're not going to be able to take away the cerebral palsy. And when you're blaming yourself for that, all it does is add shame and guilt to your plate, and it serves no purpose.
The past does not exist. The future does not exist. The only thing that exists is the present. You worrying about the past way too much affects your present. You worrying about I'm not going to raise that finger. The future too much that affects your present, which then affects your future. You worry about what they can't do in the future, you're not focusing on their present. If you worry about what happened and what you might have done or something in your past, you're affecting their present. All you have to worry
Yeah,
about today is your child in the present right now.
just yeah, and just live in the moment. Um, And, like, I feel like I've listed off all the I get emotional with the parent ones. I'm sorry, guys. I really hate people I hate seeing people blame themselves for something that is beyond their control, for something they didn't ask for something that they can't
I've
change at
I've
all.
talked to people and I've literally seen the sheen in their eyes as I'm like, "No, it's okay. You're really trying. Your kid's doing really good." Even when it comes to like not just palsy, but like autism and stuff like that. I grew up my mom helping people like that, right? So I was totally used to it. And he's like, "Oh, I have no problem with your son. I'm not going to name a child, but your son, he's high functioning. When he runs around the neighborhood, I go, "Run faster, buddy," and he grins and keeps running faster because that's his stim. And she's like and he's like, "No, your child's really high functioning. He's really good. No problem with that."
Yeah.
And the look on her face was like she needed to hear that. Same thing with like cerebral palsy. If like a parent's like, "I'm sorry, it's taking us so long to get somewhere," or this, or apologizing for having a child with a disability.
Yeah, and, like, I understand, how parents could feel bad about it, and I understand. The thing is, like, a lot of people don't realize, like, we live in a society where you're it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, especially when it comes to mothers. Like, I've heard so many stories about, like, raise them this way. No, you're doing it wrong. Raise them that way. Do this, do that. Da, da, da. And it's always going to come from people that aren't in your shoes, that aren't living your life. Those people don't matter. Those might be people that you love, but, and they might mean well, but they're not living your life with a kid that requires extra needs.
Even people without kids. Oh my god, the amount of people that give advice who are childless, never should have a child type people, giving advice in my family, how my sister-in-law and brother should raise their kids. You should not be talking right now. You don't know their life, you don't know their struggles, you don't even have a clear of their struggles, you don't even think of wanting children. Stop giving advice how to raise their child.
Yeah. Well, everybody's going to have different parenting methods and different styles because of how they grew up and what their life was like and stuff like that.
Or trying to undo what your parents did to you. That's a big one.
Yeah. Well, like I really feel for parents because you're already in that spot where you're going to get judged all the time, and these people are also not in your position. They're not in your position where they have a child that has special needs that requires that extra care. And another thing I want to touch on for our parent listeners out there is, yes, it's exhausting. And I'm telling you, as somebody that has this condition, it's exhausting. It's okay to feel exhausted. That's normal. Anybody would. Parents already feel exhausted as it is, but when you have these extra worries and concerns and these extra things that you have to focus on, like you shouldn't feel guilty about feeling exhausted. You shouldn't feel guilty about grieving that your child's not going to have the life that you envisioned when you started your family. Like, I don't know.
Their, potential.
I've been reading too many posts from parents this past like week. I'm getting all like emotional and crap, and it just makes me
"Hey, I'm the
angry, right?
actual parent here. This is my job." No.
Right, it's your domain. You should be the one ranting about this, but it just makes me angry because like, you're already dealt a full plate as it is, and then you have people judging you that aren't they're not up late with your kid dealing with the insomnia. Almost nearly every single one of us has insomnia. It's part of the brain damage. I don't know exactly what area affects that, but a lot of people with cerebral palsy, one of the largest complaints that I see is they can't get their kid to stay asleep. They can't put their kid to sleep because the insomnia is really bad. The people judging you, they're not up all night with your kid trying to get them to sleep, trying to get them to rest for their brain development. They're not working a full-time job while raising a kid that requires that extra attention or care. We have a viewer that we were supposed to do an interview with, and we had that lined up, and she had to cancel a couple times on us because of the fact that her child has cerebral palsy. She also has other children in her family that don't have cerebral palsy, but her child with cerebral palsy, she was in the process of trying to find a new nurse. And, I feel like unless you've had to go and find a nurse to help care for your kid, that you don't have the right to judge somebody else for what they can and can't do. And as long as they're not abusing their child, like, you don't have the right to, like, say anything. And because we're here for resources, I sent her, if you guys saw our episode 9, we did an interview with a nonprofit. I sent her the information on that nonprofit. I don't know if she's contacted them yet. I hope she has. But one of the things that the nonprofits help with is funding for medical expenses, funding for medical expenses, and funding for supplies. It just, I don't know. I'm going on a tangent here, damn
You're
it.
petering out. We've been here for an hour and 20 minutes. Like,
Damn.
yeah, hey, this whole podcast is about pacing ourselves, Sharon. Come on.
Oh my God. Did you have any other? I'm sorry. I totally took the floor. Do you have any other, like, what's the misconception that you have, like, the biggest issue with?
Well, there's one about like the genetic. There's one about what it can or can't do. Okay, I'm just top of my head. There's family stories, but I'm not going to name family members and keep them out of names out of this. There was a photo, and they said, "Get down this hill," and it was a Badlands hill, so it was like desert rocks, right? And they're like, "Get down," and I'm like, and I go, "What? Why? Why?" They just tell me to get down, and then the sun goes down, and then I've never heard the end of I ruin a perfect family photo story at this moment because you just didn't get down the hill when we told you, and I go, it was a rocky hill I could have fallen down, and you didn't give me a good reason to go down the hill. All I did was ask why, and I would have gone down the hill for the photo. But I'm not going to
Dude,
risk
I'm so,
my body because you just demand I do something. And then somehow I should feel guilty. I wasn't willing to go down a dangerous path because you told me to. Like, and
yeah,
this was family talking to me. And again, I love my family.
makes me mad for you. That sucks. That makes me mad for you because I've dealt with similar stuff. Like, I used to babysit on this back in high school, and I had one lady that was mad at me because I wouldn't carry her kid upstairs. I'm like, look, I don't have the balance for this, and I'm not trying to fall down the steps with your baby and possibly kill them. And you're gonna get mad at me because I don't want to risk your child's safety because I know I don't have the balance for this. Like, hello, like.
Yeah, and it's like it's just my family's misconceptions, and it's like sometimes they think I'm too disabled, and that's my family's people. Sometimes they think I'm too able, and both parts can create problems. So I literally say like you just need to tell me why.
Yeah. Also, I think that might be an ADHD thing too, because I am a very why person. Like, okay, you need me to do this or that. Why? Like, for basic stuff like chores and stuff that's like obvious why. Like, it's not like that, but like if somebody is asking for something or like they need me to do something specific and it sounds off to my ears, I'm just like, okay, but I need to know why.
Yeah. Also, with a policy attached to that, it's like you need to explain why I should be willing to spend a little bout of the tiny meter of energy I have during the day. If you go, it's because of something I'm not going to find important. Why would I waste that much of my energy I have for the day?
Right.
So please,
We're on
respect.
limited battery.
Yeah.
I think we've covered most of the common misconceptions that we've been seeing, and we can always do another video because this is such a wide topic and such a, like, what really grinds my gears type of topic. So Family Guy, don't sue us for that.
Yeah.
And That's an old episode. God, I'm old.
Or you know what my friends have used? Talk about Family Guy, right? Every time they see me, they go, "Holy crap, it's a crapple!" And like
I
the
need.
one where Joe built like a transformer out of guys in wheelchairs, that was hilarious. I found that the funniest thing in the world.
Oh my God, give me a second. Spell. 1 second here. I'm trying to find the clip from um. There's a. I'm trying to find it for those of you that are Family Guy fans that have probably watched like the original Family Guy. There was a bit where the news anchor they did like a story of somebody with cerebral palsy, and it's gonna sound terrible. So they did this bit, and Tom's like talking, and they're having like the freaking Trisha talking now, where somebody like described the disorder or whatever, and Tom was like, "Well, isn't that lovely?" Something about like not. He's like, "I've never seen one past the age of 15. Like we just die early. Like it was okay. It was bad, but like that's my style of humor. So people that are listening to that
I found that
don't
hilarious
take
because
that.
I'm 39. So I lived past the age of 15. Oh, okay, okay. One of my favorites, okay? It's literally on one of our pages, Adults with Cerebral Palsy, okay? The photo, okay? It's the guy dressed up with a handicap symbol and he's hands like this, okay? That is from the comedy troupe in Living Color. They had Jim Carrey on it and everything. Okay, the actual actor who plays Handyman doesn't have cerebral palsy. His brother or his cousin has cerebral palsy, right? He does such an accurate representation of someone moving with cerebral palsy, right? And no, I love it. It's great. And he's like, it'd be handyman is here, never fear. And the guy, okay, each episode is about someone messing with someone disabled or a minority, and like this guy's like, and it's like he flies like this. He falls out of windows because he can't jump, so he just falls out of the
Oh my
window,
God.
and then he's flying like this with his wing with his cape. He lands. Okay, the first episode I ever saw, he lands in a bathroom, and this guy in a wheelchair is like, "Oh, "Thank you, handyman. This guy's in the handy stall. He won't get out." It's like, "Don't
Oh my
worry,
gosh.
citizen." He taps his head and he takes his palsy hands and he rips the door off because he's a superhero. He's actually a superhero. Rips the door off, and there's this guy with like a full dinner and listening to a radio and reading a newspaper on the using the disabled toilet as his own personal office. And he goes like, "What are you doing? Like, this is a handy stall only for handicapped people." And he takes him and he throws him into the wall because he's super strong, but he's still got palsy. And like he beats him up and kicks him out. And the guy's like, "Thank you, handyman." And he's like, "No worries, citizen." And then he falls out the window and keeps flying and he flies like this. I watched that as a teenager and I loved it. I
What
loved
is
it.
the what's the name of that show for our viewers? Because they might want to
In
check that
living
out if they
in living color.
in living color. Okay.
Yeah. Oh
So
my
yeah, if you
god, we
guys
should
want to.
watch those episodes. It's so great. It's so great.
Yeah, no, we can. I'm definitely down for that. That is definitely my sense of humor. And guys, I understand like our sense of humor is not going to be everyone's sense of humor, so we don't mean any offense by any of the jokes that we make or anything like that. It's just how it's our way of coping with dealing with the frustrations of cerebral palsy. And when you have to have a sense of humor or you're going to be miserable about it. Like that's my take on it.
What is it?
I think that's it on our misconceptions, but we're also an hour and 30. This is going to be
Yeah.
terrible for me to edit. Oh my God. All right. So, again, if you managed to stay this long in our rants, thank you. Please like and subscribe. Your support means the world to us. I've loved watching our channel grow. I've loved the comments and questions that I've been able to get, help people with. I absolutely love being able to connect people with our nonprofit affiliate. So that's been amazing. We couldn't do it without you guys, and I can't thank you enough for kind of keeping the ball rolling on that with the amount of support you guys have given. So like and subscribe so we can do more. Please.
Ta-ta for
Peace
now.
out.